All right, let's jump right into a question that just completely breaks history as we know it. It's one of those giant what-ifs, the kind that makes you rethink basically everything. We're going to ask, what would our world even look like if one of the most important inventions in human history showed up 1,000 years early?
To really get your head around the scale of this, let's try a little thought experiment. Just picture it, a world of castles and knights, and bam, someone invents the internet. It sounds totally insane, right? Like it would just shatter that entire reality. Well, that's exactly what the printing press was. Seriously, back in its day, it was every single bit as revolutionary, as world-changing, and as powerful as the internet is for us. It was a piece of tech that literally rewrote the rules of the world. So let's look at the timeline here. Before Gutenberg's press, around 1440, information moved, well, at the speed of a person walking. Everything was copied by hand. But after 1440, ideas suddenly went viral. They could spread faster than a conquering army. So our whole game here is to take that exact moment of disruption and drag it all the way back to 400 AD, right when the Roman Empire was starting to fall apart.
Okay, so to really feel the explosion this thing is about to cause, we've got to understand the world we're dropping it into. And let me tell you, this was a world where knowledge wasn't just hard to find, it was basically kept under lock and key.
Before printing, if you wanted to read a book, or see a map, or learn anything really, you had to go to one of three places: the palace, the temple, or the monastery. These were the centers of power, and knowledge was this precious thing that was hoarded by a tiny, tiny group of people.
And for pretty much everyone else, this right here is the number of books they would read in their entire life. 0. Nothing. A single Bible copied by hand could take years. Information just wasn't meant for regular people.
And this really gets to the heart of it. In that world, information was power, period. And because only a few people controlled the information, they had absolute power. Kings and priests ran the show because they controlled the stories, the laws, and the sacred texts. Now, let's drop a printing press right in the middle of all that.
The first thing to just completely blow up wouldn't be science or politics. It would be faith. Because all of a sudden, people can actually read the source code of their own religion for the very first time.
See, before the press, religious authority was a total monopoly. The priests told you what the scriptures meant, and you just had to take their word for it. You couldn't check their work because you didn't have the book.
But with a printing press in 400 AD, whoa. Suddenly, Bibles are popping up in every little village. People can lay them out side by side, they can see the contradictions, they can start asking some very uncomfortable questions. That monopoly on truth, it doesn't just crack, it shatters overnight.
So what you get is basically the Protestant Reformation, but 1,000 years early. And instead of just one big church, you get hundreds of different versions popping up all over the place. This leads to massive conflict, but in a world that is way, way less prepared to deal with that kind of chaos than Europe was in the 1500s.
And all that religious chaos leads directly to the next domino to fall, the empire itself. I mean, think about it. Once you can't control what people believe, it gets a whole lot harder to control what they do.
This table just lays it out perfectly. Before printing, the official story is the only story. Laws are secret knowledge, and you don't question authority. But after, every single one of those pillars just crumbles. People can read the laws themselves and decide if they're fair. They can read different ideas about how to run a country. Suddenly, being in charge isn't enough. You have to actually justify it.
And the result of that is just staggering. The Dark Ages, that whole long period of stagnation, it might not even happen. Instead, you get this messy, chaotic, but also kind of brilliant early Enlightenment. It's a world of progress and chaos, all wrapped up together. Which, of course, brings us to maybe the most exciting part of this whole idea. What happens when you give everybody the ability to read, and then you let them mix and match knowledge from all over the world? You get a scientific revolution centuries ahead of schedule.
Just look at this recipe. Science is all about sharing ideas. In our new timeline, a scholar in, say, 600 AD could have a whole library. A book on Indian mathematics right next to a Greek geometry textbook, next to Roman engineering plans and designs for Chinese machines. This isn't just learning anymore. This is the recipe for an explosion of innovation.
You put all that together, and yeah, you could easily see industrial machines or even early steam engines by the year 1000. But you see that last slice? Technology is always a double-edged sword. All that knowledge also means printed manuals on how to build better catapults and wage war more effectively. It makes everything more advanced, including destruction. So, with all this incredible progress, does that mean we get the modern world like 1,000 years early?
This is where we hit the big paradox of this whole scenario.
And the answer, maybe surprisingly, is no, probably not. And here's why. Technology needs a stable society to really grow. It needs functioning economies, institutions, a culture that's ready for it. And our early printing press has just spent centuries tearing all of that down.
So you're stuck in this crazy loop. On one hand, humanity is making progress faster than ever. But on the other, it's creating way more chaos and destruction. It's like history on fast forward, with both the good and the bad turned up to 11. So this alternate history probably doesn't look like a nice, clean line going up. It's probably more like a chaotic series of spikes and crashes. You'd see civilizations rise to amazing new heights, only to collapse under the weight of all the social change and revolutions they've created, over and over and over again.
And that really brings us to the most important lesson in this whole thing. The tool itself, no matter how powerful, is never the answer. It all comes down to the maturity of the people using it. The printing press couldn't save the ancient world because saving a civilization takes wisdom, not just information.
And this is where this whole history lesson suddenly becomes about right now. Because if you think about it, with the internet, with AI, with instant global communication, we are absolutely living through a disruption just as big as the one we just imagined. We have our own world-breaking machine.
Which leaves us with the real question, doesn't it? This isn't about what might have happened 1,000 years ago. It's about what's happening today. Are we, as a society, mature enough to handle the incredible, chaotic power we've built for ourselves? That's the question this alternate history is really asking us.